Hi everybody, apologies for the short delay there. My name is Dave Pope. We had a bit of a webinar queue, believe it or not. Seems to be a popular thing these days. First of all, just waiting for a few people to arrive. I can see a queue going around the building. First of all, my name is Dave Pope. I am the head of sales and training for Not Just Travel and the Travel franchise. Really like to thank you for joining me today. So I can share my thoughts about communication, and let's be honest, that's changed a bit over the last few weeks. First of all, a bit of housekeeping. If you could turn your speakers up, that would be great, and your cameras off. I'm going to keep mine on as we go through, and then what we will do is have questions at the end. First test for you all is, could someone just put in the chat or in the question to let me know that you can hear me okay? That would be great. Yes, lots of yeses there. That's good to see. There's nothing worse than doing a webinar for an hour and nobody being able to hear you. Great. So we shall begin. We shall begin. Here's my menu for today. And those of you that know me will know that this is not a scripted webinar, and that's part of the beauty of communication, which we'll come on to later. First of all, we're going to go down memory lane. We're going to talk a little bit about the past. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I've come from, what I do. I'm not going to do too much there because it's a long story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a story about lockdown. I've done this presentation several times before, but since the last time I did it, things have changed a little bit. So a little bit about a lockdown story that I have for you. And the main bits of the presentation are two key things about a revolution in communication, about really thinking about how we communicate, the methods that we use to communicate, and then all the words and the phrases and how we speak as well. Also going to tell you about, sort of straight up in a minute, about a story about bananas in the Bank of England. This is a story about email. And then we'll move on to talking about the evolution of communication. So we'll be talking about going back to the days when we used to communicate in a certain way. And then we'll be talking about the future and how we're communicating now and what we're going to carry on from now, but also what we've learned about communicating now, and we'll say, no, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. So that's the menu for today. And the broadcast or the webinar today can help people in different ways. This isn't just about helping you grow your business, helping you make your business better, or finding you customers, prospects, or converting more sales. Now, it is useful for that, but it also helps outside work. It can help you meet more people. It can help you get a better result from when you meet people. So we can use it in different ways in how we run our lives, because things are changing. A little bit about me. So I've worked in the travel industry for probably pushing 30 years now. That's not me in the picture, but that's how travel agents used to be. Yeah, that's how travel agents used to look. This is probably back in the 70s. But in that industry has changed dramatically. As well as working in travel, I was young once. So I've traveled the world. That was me in Borneo, Sydney Cricket Ground when I was very young. So I used to work in travel and travel around the world as well. Those days, things were different. I'm talking about sort of late 80s. The way we used to sell travel and communicate with our customers was different. The phone was probably one of the only methods that we could communicate. Phone and face-to-face. We didn't have internet. We didn't have, didn't really have very functional computers. No internet, no mobile phones. We used to advertise in the newspaper. I remember we used to advertise what we would call a loss leader, is that what we advertised was probably available one day a year or something. And that loss leader was designed to get the phone to ring, and then we had to switch salespeople onto something else. So the phone was our best friend. And I remember we used to keep, everything was on paper. We'd print everything out, and we'd keep everything in these manila folders. All our bookings and our customers were in there, and customers used to send us checks. People didn't really deal with debit cards and credit cards in those days. And I remember how exciting it used to be when we used to go down what we used to call the post room and find a letter with a check attached to it. So we used to put everything in those envelopes. We used typewriters. Yeah, we used to send customers letters and sign them at the bottom. And we used to meet customers, customers either over the phone or face to face. Customers would make appointments to come and see us. And that way of dealing with customers made it a much more personal way of doing business. Because when someone's sat in front of you or someone's on the phone, there's a lot more that you can bring into that conversation than you can in some of the ways that we communicate these days. Not saying they're wrong, but there's a place for every type of communication. Now, I've even, talking in typewriters, I've even seen, I don't know whether this is real, but I've seen typewriters that work with iPads. I don't know whether that's real. I saw it on the internet. But first of all, I wanted to share a story from a lockdown with you. Something that I did a few weeks ago, right at the beginning, probably the second week of lockdown. And what I did, I probably got about 250 contacts in my phone. And what I decided to do was send 25 text messages a night. Now, I don't use text very much, but I thought, I sat down there one night and I write 25 people, and all I said was, hi, so-and-so, whatever the name was, hi, Dave, hope you're keeping okay, just thought I'd check in. And I sent that to 25 people, 3-4 nights in a row. And you know what? I was staggered by the response that I got to those text messages. And you know what? It made me a little bit angry. Angry for me because there were people that I hadn't spoken to in years. And I'd learned so much from a simple text back. First of all, they were so grateful, so pleased to hear from me. That's always nice. But also things had happened in their life that I didn't know. Somebody I had just lost a house sale because they'd lost their job. Someone I knew very well, who I still know very well, had been very ill with cancer. And I didn't know that. And I felt annoyed with myself. I said, why don't I know that? Because I hadn't taken the time to contact them. And that text message, and I had so many text messages that came back. Not everyone. Some people come back with, who's this? So they don't delete me from their phone. But that exercise really made me think about, there are so many people that we don't communicate with. And if we do, we may be a simple text or a WhatsApp or an email. And is that really enough? We'll talk about, as we go through the presentation, through the webinar, about the different choices we can make when we're talking to people in business, but also families. So this is something I did before lockdown. And what I really, really feel, that as a world, we've become lazy. That's not me, by the way, eating those chips. We have become lazy in the way that we communicate. And that's what, the internet has done, technology has done. And I can, children these days, and I have 2 young kids, and they can use iPads. They've been using iPads, there's Xboxes, computers. But we have to make sure that they keep in contact. And now the good thing about a lockdown, I guess, that they can do is they can have video calls with their friends. I've got 6-year-olds having video calls. We've got 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds, 100-year-olds having video calls. Again, this is something we'll go into later because we haven't been doing that. So the first thing about this presentation is about the revolution that we have to start. The revolution with the way that we communicate with each other in business and our personal lives. So we have to agree today, before you go, that we're going to do this. I'm just checking to see if I have any questions so far. No, great, that's all about the sound. So we're going to agree with me today that we're going to start a revolution right now that will have to be in stages. A revolution right now about how we communicate with our customers, with our family, with our friends. And then when we come out of lockdown, some of it's going to change. Some of it will go back to what it was. Some of it will go back to what it should be. Some of it will go forward to what it could be. So you agree with me now that we're going to start a revolution, not just for the sake of it, because we're going to get something from it. So what we have at the moment, this is all new stuff to me. We have something called WhatsApp. I don't know if you've known this new invention called WhatsApp. It's a bit like text, but it's a little bit different. I can't work out why it's different than text, but it can be very useful. I manage a under 11s football team, and I have all the parents in a WhatsApp group. And it's great for communicating about matches and training. And it's a quick way of someone coming back to you. And also, because you don't always have email in front of you, you don't always have your laptop in front of you, and I don't have email on my phone deliberately by choice. So WhatsApp can be good, but WhatsApp can be a lazy way of asking somebody how they are. That's a lazy way of asking someone how they are with no feeling. Email I'll come to in a minute. Email's great. It's been around for a long time. Email's great for certain things, but not for other things. And we'll talk about email in just a minute. Text messaging. I'm not a big texter, or I have been recently in lockdown, but I'm not a big texter. If someone sends me a text message, I do this a really annoying thing. I call them. If my wife sends me a text saying, get some wine tonight, I'll ring her and say, what color, love? So text is useful though for some things, but sometimes we hide behind it. We hide behind WhatsApp. We hide behind email because it's easy. It's easy, and we haven't really got to have anyone in front of us. So there's good things, quick things, but other things where it's not useful. We'll come to that in a minute. I heard of this thing on the internet. I don't know what it's called. I think it might be called, is it Tinder or something, where you can meet people online through this. I don't know how it works, but apparently it's a new thing. I think it's only just been invented, but it's a new thing where you can meet people online. But first of all, I want to talk about the first part of our revolution, and that's about email. And to do this, I have to start off with a story. If you know me, you'll know that I like a story. If you don't know me, there'll be stories. So I worked with a guy once, and his main business, he goes into big organizations, big companies, and he helps them use email better to make them more productive. Yeah, so he'd study how they used email and say, right, do this and do that, and it makes them more productive. Now, he worked for the Bank of England once, and he went to the Bank of England with the intention of making them more productive with their use of email, saving them more time and everything else. And this is a demonstration of how email can work and not work. So somebody at the Bank of England, I don't know how many people there were, 5,000, 10,000, don't quote me on the numbers, but there's a lot of people that work for the Bank of England. And somebody in the Bank of England sent an email, send to all at the Bank of England. And do you know what was in that email? Somebody has left a banana in the kitchen. Yes, somebody has left a banana in the kitchen. That was the email that went to the whole of the Bank of England. So in itself, we start counting up the numbers. How long did that take to write? 20 seconds, 30 seconds? Fine, it's gone out. I don't know it's gone to everybody, because maybe there was some section in the Bank of England where they were supposed to send that email to, but it went to the whole of the Bank of England. So the time to send that email, 20 seconds. So how many people read that email about the banana in the Bank of England kitchen? So if 5,000 people read it and it takes 10 seconds to read it, let's be conservative, in 10 seconds, I don't know the maths, 5,000 people times 10 seconds. But that's not enough, is it? 5,000 people read it, you'll get out of offices and things like that, but then you're going to get all those out of offices coming back to you. 5,000 people read it, say, and then it's the replies. So some people are going to reply. So you might get replies like, it's not my banana. What kitchen is it? And then the replies to the replies. Oh, it's this kitchen. What color is it? Then you get the funny replies. What color is it? Is it straight or bent? What country is it from? So these emails come back and forth. Oh, it's yellow. It's green. Well, it's not ready if it's green. So you could say that the number of emails that add up back and forth from one innocent email that's going forward. And it worked out that the lost productivity from one email was about 3 days or something. And that's just one email. So as an example, and yes, a quick story, but it's an example of how email doesn't work. Now we know email works for a lot of things. We can send data through email. We can send a spreadsheet, sending figures to a team of people with an attachment. Great. Sending a proposal to a customer. It's great. Sending it doesn't replace the sales process, but sending a proposal by email is great because again, it's quick. We can put it in a nice, pretty PDF, and we can send links and all those sort of things. So sending a proposal, sending a quote, that's great. So sending things, data, information. But email is only part. Email has situations and problems. Spam. I don't know about you guys, but I can't stop it coming in. I try everything. You get people sending emails you don't want. You spend time reading them, and a lot of mine goes into junk, and then you get things going into junk that you shouldn't have going into junk. So you've got to check the junk for the things that aren't junk. So you get emails that you haven't asked for. There's emails where it probably would have been better to have a phone call. So email's great, but it's time consuming. We check our email every minute of the day, except when we haven't got email. So in the evenings, I took email off my phone because it wouldn't stop beeping. Because if you get an email on your phone, you're going to read it. Oh, because it might be important. It might be an essential email. Not that you can do much at 12 o'clock at night with it. But if it's there and it's on your phone, you're going to answer it. So, oh no, but I've got WhatsApp instead, or text. So many different ways of communicating. But email's good for data and sending things. And sending things to a lot of different people, let's be honest. But then there's the worst thing about email. You may have heard this. It's the, did you get my email? Email. I get those a lot. Did you get my email? Or they ring you and say, did you get my email? So, well, why didn't you ring me instead of emailing me in the first place? So email is useful for some things, but it's not useful for certain things. Trying to sell by email. Trying to have a conversation by email. Where do you want to go for lunch? Do you want to meet up later? All those type of things. It's like there's nothing. There's nothing, because how you write, I probably should go back a little bit on the slide. How you write the email is not always how someone will read the email, because you write it with a certain tonality in your head. People read it with a totally different feeling. Things can get confused and misconstrued. I know that word came out right. Misconstrued. Things can get confused. Oh, that email sounded a little bit tough. Well, it wasn't meant to be. Well, that's how it sounded, because someone's read it different. So email, this is part of our first part of the revolution, everybody. Send less emails. Be more disciplined with your email. Don't check it every minute of the day. Check it in the morning, check it at lunchtime, check it at the end of the day if we're talking about work. If you don't need email on your phone, don't have email on your phone. Have some time where it's email free. If someone needs you, they'll probably call you. If someone needs me urgently, they know they can send me a WhatsApp message. That's when WhatsApp can be good. And if it's urgent enough, then you can arrange a call. But we can become a slave to email. Don't become a slave to email. So there we are with email. So what the choice is now, before you send that email, that next email you're going to send right now in a minute after this, where you send someone an email and say, oh, I just seen this webinar, it was great. Would that have more impact if you picked up the phone? Read the email, say, right, will there be more impact if I pick the phone up? If you send someone an email saying, did you get my proposal? What did you think? Did you get my quote? What did you think? Because that's easy, isn't it? Pick the phone up and say somebody, what did you think of my proposal? Are you ready to buy? Are you ready to buy it now? That's much more effective. But sometimes we hide because someone's given us this new way of communicating. 30 years ago, we couldn't do that. You had to pick the phone up, or you had to go and knock on someone's door. I used to love the old door-to-door salesman. I love them. I used to admire the door-to-door salesman. You used to go around knocking on doors, and they'd get rejected by 95% of people. And they remember they used to put their foot in the door so you couldn't close it. And we used to have door-to-door salesmen who used to come and look through the letterbox. It was terrifying in those days. But you had to admire them. So someone's now given us this new way of communicating. It doesn't mean we have to use it. So think about how much more effect a telephone will have to a conversation, whether it's business, whether it's social, whether it's friendship, whether it's love, whatever it is. I remember the old days where if you met somebody in a pub or in a club in those days before you could do stuff online, if you were lucky enough to wake up with a phone number in the morning and a crumpled piece of paper, we didn't have a phone in our house, let alone a mobile phone. We didn't have a real phone. You had to have that long, lonely walk to the red phone box at the top of the road. You used to get there, you had this phone number, and it used to take ages to dial. Some of you youngsters here won't remember these phones, but it used to take ages to dial the number. And then their parents would answer, and you'd put it back down. And then you'd have to get a little bit more courage to do it again. But that's how we used to communicate, and there was much more effect, because you get someone on the phone, it's harder to say no. It's easy to say no on a text or delete a text or an email. You make the effort to phone someone and think about how you're going to speak to them. There's much more power and the influence to what you can do. So always find a reason to call. It doesn't mean you've got to ring everyone. And you could say the text messages I sent the other week, they could have been phone calls. But some of those text messages have resulted in phone calls. So I've said, oh, I've got to ring this guy. How's your wife? Oh, she left me. I didn't know that, and I should have known that. Things like that. And now it means I've set a mission now to talk to all these people much more regularly. I've taken people out of my phone that don't need to be in there because I can't remember who they are. So find a reason to call, and this doesn't have to be in business. Friends, family, people you haven't spoken to too long not to call someone. We have this thing at Not Just Travel where we have it's called a 56-day call. Now, where possible, we talk to our customers over the phone. When customers have had a holiday, obviously at the moment there aren't many people going on holidays, but they will. When people go on holiday and they come back, we make a welcome home call, probably 3 or 4 days after they get back. That's just to genuinely see how their holiday was. And that's the question. How was your trip? Tell me about it. And they do, and we listen. And the reason some people don't make that call, and they'll say, Dave, what if they've had a bad time? I said, well, even more reason for making that phone call. And what that leads on to is, well, where are you going next? Where's your next holiday? So not only is it a genuine customer service call, it's a marketing call and a sales call in the same thing. And then the 56-day call is something a little bit different. We read a survey, or I read a survey somewhere, is that when you come back from a holiday, it's 56 days before you start wanting to go again. Although I know when you get back, you probably want to go again, but apart from that bit, 56 days before people want to book another holiday. So what we do, we diarize 56 days in our diary and we call our customers. And it won't be a hard sales call. It'll be something along the line of, hi, Dave, Janet here. I don't know who Janet is, but hi, Janet, it's Dave here. Just have something I wanted to say. I read a survey the other day and it said that it's 56 days before people like to book another holiday. Guess what day it is today? And it's a bit of fun. I don't even know if it's real, but it doesn't really matter. It's a reason to pick up a phone. So the first stage of our revolution, everybody, is going from email to phone. Now the next stage, so we've talked about sending an email and talking about the phone being more effective. Now let's go a step further. Now this we can't do at the moment, but we will be able to do it soon. So if you're about to make a phone call, think about what the reason for that phone call is. And then think to yourself, well, what more effect would I have if I can meet this person face to face, for a coffee, for lunch, for dinner? for a run, whatever. What more effect could it have if I actually met this person? And I think when we come, well, I know when we come out of this situation, we're going to want to see a lot of people. Let's be honest. We're going to want to go and have a coffee. We're going to want to go and have a drink. We're going to want to see people. So think about what effect that would have if you're selling something, if you're promoting something, because then it brings a lot more things into play, doesn't it? How we dress, how we look, how we sound, how we smell, all those types of things come into play. But you're a lot more powerful in many ways if you're face to face, as long as you're doing it right. And that's a whole different webinar about influence and status. But think about how much impact, because you then got body language, eye contact, not too much eye contact, of course. So think about email, going back to picking up the phone. And if you had no phone, if you had no email, you'd have no choice but to meet people. That's what people used to do. And if you're in sales, if you're trying to sell by email, your conversion rate will be like that. 1, 2, 3%. If you're lucky, depending on what industry. If you then go on the phone, you might push it up 20, 30%. If you're selling face to face, generally probably 50, 60%. So your chances of getting some business, or maybe getting a partner, if it's not business related, your chances will go up. And if we talk about social media, I'm not going to go into social media in any great detail here. If you're communicating on Facebook, whether it's a Facebook Live or a Facebook post or Facebook friends, or you're doing Twitter hours or you're on Twitter, then that is a route not just to communicate through social, but that's an opportunity to take it from the big social cloud here and put it in a coffee shop. So if I'm doing a Twitter hour, that's fine. I can communicate with someone, but that is only the interview, not the job, if you know what I mean. That's to get interest. Great, fantastic to meet you. You fancy a coffee on Friday? We can talk about it in more detail. Then your chances go up, whatever the opportunity is. So face to face makes it a lot more personal, yeah? A lot more personal. So we talked so far about the way we communicate and methods: email, phone, good old-fashioned face-to-face. But then we have to think about the way we communicate, not just the speed at which we speak, because you can influence other people, because you may be speaking to someone that's talking really, really fast. And by slowing down your pace, then that hopefully will slow down. It will eventually. Or if you're talking really, really fast, it will influence the other person to talk fast, because they think you're in a rush. And then nothing will get done. So you can control the pace of a conversation. The tone of our voice is really important. I know there's a tendency on webinars, and I don't know if you've seen this, a tendency on webinars and Zoom calls and whatever you use to shout, because you don't think my microphone's just here and you're just there. But I think people generally think that if you're on a webinar, people are 300 or 400 miles away. Now they might be, but they can actually still hear you. So the tonality of your voice, so we lift it up. If we want to emphasize something, we can sometimes soften our voice, because that can be a really good way of emphasizing something. Maybe a secret we don't want anyone else to hear. So the speed, the tone, the volume of your voice is up to you to control that. But also, we have a choice of what words to use. Now, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, I'm not scripted. I can't work off a script. I've written nothing down today. All I have is an image in front of me and some words. Now, I don't know what I'm going to say next. I have to choose the words, like I've just done. I have to choose the words I'm going to say. I've got to choose the way I'm going to say them, and I've got to look at the camera. So we all have that. None of us are scripted, but we do have to think about the other person or people that we're communicating with. There's a nice big juicy burger there. So not only is the way we speak important, but the words that we use are also important. And that can be the same in email and WhatsApp and text as well. The words can make a difference, but the words will have most impact in the spoken word, on the telephone, and in webinars, in face-to-face. And there's certain words that we don't use. I call them banned words in Not Just Travel. I don't use these words because they're just meaningless. Nice. If you're describing a holiday or a hotel or a beach, would you use word nice? Cheap. Cheap's the thing that budgies do. Cheap should never be anywhere near a sales conversation or a proposal. Cheap doesn't always work. People want cheap holidays, people want cheap clothes or cheap cars or cheap houses. A cheap car won't last long. A cheap house might not match the family that you have. Cheap clothes won't fit. Cheap holidays you won't enjoy. But it's important to match the customer with how much they want to spend, which is why we never use the word budget. Because if I say to a customer, what's your budget? What's your budget? How's that going to sound? It's we're presuming that they're on a race to the bottom. The example of the burgers here, if I said to somebody, would you like to go out for a meal? Would you like to go to Budget Burgers? What would you say? No, thank you. Because a budget burger doesn't sound very appetizing, does it? But if I said to you, would you like to go out for a meal? Let's go to the Gourmet Burger Company. Now that sounds much more appealing, doesn't it? But what you don't know is that both companies buy their burgers from the same wholesaler. It's all in the name. So it's about the words that we choose, and we have to think about how we do this. And you don't want to go over the top, but thinking about how you're describing something without going off the scale really will have an impact in what you're doing, not just in sales. These are the Mr. Men. I learned something once from a good friend of mine. I don't know if he's watching this at the moment. I worked with a guy, he used to be a stand-up comedian, and we used to do webinar training and things. And what he said to me is like, when you're talking to someone, think about how you want them to feel. How do you want to affect that person in any one situation, whether it's just somebody in the street, whether it's someone in the end of a phone call, you may be working in a call center, it may be a friend or family member. How do you want them to feel at any one moment? And once you work out how you want them to feel, you'll have much better chance of getting the result that you want. Because we all have the power to make people feel many different feelings. Right now, I could tell you a funny joke. If I could remember one, I could tell you a really funny joke that would make you laugh. You may have laughed when I told you about the bananas in the Bank of England. You might not have laughed. So I can tell you a story that will make you laugh. But also, I could tell you something really sad. I could tell you, I have a very sad story I heard 2 days ago, but I'm not going to tell you it now because I don't want you to feel sad. But I do have a very sad story. But why would I want you to feel sad? So I can make you feel happy, I can make you feel sad. I can make you feel that small. We can all make someone feel that small, like Mr. Small. Or I can make you feel 20 foot tall, like Mr. Tall. We all have that, but sometimes we don't think about how we want someone else to feel. Now that can be family. Sometimes we drop our guard and we say something, we go, oh, I shouldn't have said that because of how it's affected someone. We all do it, we're human. But if we think about it, when we're more conscious about it, then we become more powerful with the way we speak. So think about the next conversation you have, whether with a customer or a friend or a family member or a stranger. Think about how you want them to feel. How do you want to affect them? If you're ringing someone because their holiday's just been cancelled, you've got to think about how you want them to feel. But if you're speaking to someone who's just lost somebody in their family, it's a different conversation. So think about affect. Really, really something we can practice. Another way of using words and language is what I call presumptive language. So it means it doesn't, so some people think it might be a little bit pushy, but it's not. It just means you're going to get a result quicker, or you may influence someone in the way you ask a question. At the moment, for us in the travel industry, it's a very, very testing time because a lot of people's holidays are canceling. The media is creating problems with people about refunds and stuff. Sometimes it's a little bit justified, but if we presume that everyone wants a refund, then that's what will happen. But what we want people to is to rebook, to rearrange, to have something to look forward to, whether it's end of this year or next year. How we ask that question when we approach the customer could make a massive difference. Here's some examples of what I would call presumptive language, some relevant to what we do, some relevant to any situation. So if I have a customer and I'm trying to close the sale, if I say to someone, would you like to book that? They can say yes or no. Or if I'm presuming they're going to go ahead, I would say, how would you like to pay? If I have someone whose booking has been cancelled, I could say, would you like a refund? And they might say, yes, please. Or I can be presumptive and say, when would you like to rebook your holiday? Most of my customers today, I found, are rebooking. Probably about 80%, I would say. When would you like to rearrange your holiday for? How about October? Now, they may still want a refund, but it's the way we approach it. And something, in our social lives, you could say, would you like to go out for dinner with me tomorrow night? Or you could say, what time should I pick you up? It's 4 o'clock, all right, tomorrow. I know that's a bit early for dinner. I'll pick you up at 8. We're presuming it's going to be a yes, and it still might be a no, but it's the way that we're using our words. And if I've got a customer that wants to trying to sell something over the phone, they're not quite ready, it's absolutely fine. Give me a call back when you're ready. Do you know what? That call never comes. So we want to arrange a time. Instead of saying, oh, when's a good time for me to call you back? People don't want to hear callbacks. They don't want to be chased. When is a good time for us to talk again? When are we going to do this again? These are more presumptive, but friendly presumptive, not pushy questions. So with this revolution of communication we've spoken about so far, some of this will involve coming out of our comfort zone, coming out of modern day comfort zone, because that comfort zone was a normality 30 years ago or 20 years ago even. But now to a lot of people, using the phone or meeting someone face to face, and we'll get onto the advancements in a minute, that is a comfort zone thing. But until we come out of it and start thinking about what it is we want first and the best form of communication to get what we want, then nothing will change. So to recap, our revolution of communication is trying to go from email to the phone to face. Out of those 3 ways of communicating, there are others, which one is going to be more useful? And you can bring in WhatsApp and text if you want, and any online dating or whatever. You can look at those, but what's going to be more effective for you? Now we go to the other scale, which is the evolution of communication. So that's been happening for a while now. And my job, I spend most of the day on Zoom and phone calls and face-to-face, a mixture. But now the only way that I can communicate at the moment is really with phone and Zoom. And we've been using Zoom as a business for a long time because we have a geographically dispersed audience or workforce, franchisees. And it's very effective for most of the things we do. But now, is anyone a bit fed up with Zoom already? Because now everyone's using it. Everyone's using it. I'm a bit fed up with Zoom quizzes. I don't like quizzes at the best of the time, but quizzes on Zoom don't really work for me, and they can drag on. So Zoom and other brands, of course, is great for certain situations. And at the moment, it's a necessity. because we're using Zoom for all sorts of things, not just work, for business, for friends, family, quizzes, but it's not very personal, is it? We're using it now because we have to. We use it in business when we have to. But going forward, I guarantee there'll be a lot of us saying, no, not another Zoom call. I'm going to come and see you, or I'll ring you. So Zoom is fine for a lot of things, but I'm a little bit zoomed out at the moment. But the evolution that's taking place in communication is the video call. Because if we go back to the revolution, if you can't go from email, phone to face, I mean, next to someone in real life, could you go from phone to video or email to video? You could go email to video and miss the phone out. Because if you're on video, on a video call, you've got so much more going on. You've still got sound. You can share your screen. So if you're giving a customer a proposal, you can share it on a screen. Yeah, you can see people in the whites of their eyes. So we've been using this a lot in the past. I've done video interviews in the past a lot. Video interviews work well. But not only from a business point of view. So for the last 4 weeks, my mum's 85 and my family live further down the country. So twice a week or 3 times a week, we've been having video calls with my mum who's 85 and my young kids. And there's another way I kick myself and go, why has it taken something like this for us to have a video call with my family? So when we come out of lockdown, does it mean I'm going to go back to using the phone once a month? No, we're going to still have those video calls twice a week. Why wouldn't we? Because we've now realized in a situation where, yeah, this is cool. So video calls is part of the evolution of communication because we haven't been using them. And you've got to think of the background and the microphone and everything else and how you do it. Doesn't matter so much with family and quizzes, but in business, there's a way of doing it. So video calls are here to stay. Big tick for that. Also, a lot of us use social media. And Facebook's great, family, friends, and fun, but also business. But as we're getting braver now using video and video conferencing, Facebook Live is a great way of promoting your business. If you run a small business, Facebook Live can be great because you can, you know, I used to do a Facebook Live every Saturday morning and people can interact and ask questions. It's fun, it's relaxed, it's off the cuff, it's not scripted. But if you have a small business, you should be on Facebook Live 2 or 3 times a week. Customers, friends, or whatever should expect to see you at certain times of the week. First thing on a Monday, maybe pop one in Wednesday lunchtime, certainly one on a Friday afternoon. Telling people what's happening, become an authority about what you're doing. So Facebook Live is a great way of promoting what you do. But sometimes people say, oh, I don't want to be seen on camera. I don't want people to see me. Everyone knows what you look like. They've seen a picture of you, but you give them speech and feeling, maybe a virtual background. This isn't a virtual background, but you can get them. And then the next development. So we've talked about face-to-face video calls. We've talked about Facebook Live. Go out, go and do one today. I don't mean do one. Do a Facebook Live today. And then there's webinars. This is a webinar right now. Probably, 100 odd people on this webinar right now. So I can talk to 100 people right now. Now, I'm not selling anything. I'm just giving my views and my opinions. But if I was selling something right now, I'd have 100 potential customers right now listening to me. That's powerful. So if you're selling something, you can get an audience. You can get 100 people. Well, I can get 500 people on GoToWebinar at any one time. 500 people. Now that's powerful. You can't do that on a phone call. You can do it on email, but it isn't as powerful. This is much better than an email, I would say, I hope. So learn how to do a webinar. GoToWebinar it's quite easy to pick up. And at first, it's quite strange talking when you can't see anyone. But you get used to it. You get braver. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And if it's your business, it's got to be there. So my tasks for you today, go out and do a Facebook Live tomorrow. Then arrange a webinar, maybe for the end of next month. Give yourself a month. If you want some advice, get in contact with me. I'll help you. I'll point you in the right direction. Next week, I'm going to do a webinar about doing webinars. How about that? So next week, my broadcast will be about here's how to do webinars. And then the real future of virtual conferencing, it happens at the moment. But as we come out of this lockdown, me personally, I've been thinking about the environment. We have 2 cars, and I think, oh, I don't actually need 2 cars, really. Let's be honest, sometimes it's a vanity thing, isn't it? It's not cool getting the bus or a train. I need 2 cars. But I'm thinking, do I need 2 cars? And I think people's view about expense, the world, may change from a conferencing point of view. And I don't think virtual conferences will replace conferencing, it won't. But it'll be a very, very good alternative, something that will affect the environment, cost, and time. So virtual conferencing is something for the future. What this does, hopefully, to recap, is that the revolution of communication is that. Think about and choose the right method of communication that will get you the result that you want, whether that's in business or social, friends, family, partners. Think about and be brave. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, I don't like picking up the phone. I don't like talking to people. I don't want anybody to see me. Doesn't matter. We are who we are. Doesn't matter. Be brave. What's there to lose? Yeah, what is there to lose? If you ring someone and they say no, it doesn't really matter. If you go and meet someone for a coffee and they don't buy from you, or they don't go out with you, it doesn't really matter. Life's too short not to choose the right way of communicating if you want to benefit yourself or your business, or both. So what will give you the best chance? Well, that's my humble presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Does anyone have any questions? I recognize some of the names on here. Does anyone have any questions? And what I must say, for those of you that aren't here, this will be recorded and will be pushed out on the Business Nation network, so you'll all be able to see a recording. So if you're not here, raise your hands. No. Okay, so if anyone has any questions, pop them in the question box. Thank you, Judy. Good to hear from you again. Someone's just said to me, yes, Dave, doing a phone call straight after this webinar, not an email. Maeve, that's great. Words to my ears. Do you have a list of forbidden words and also really great words? That's a really good question, Phil. If you've seen any of my presentations before, you know that the words nice, cheap, budget, and expensive, especially in sales, aren't great words, because what's expensive to someone might not be expensive to somebody else. It's really important to understand the person before we make assumptions. Nice is a weak word. Cheap, budget, expensive, those sort of words that are meaningless. Great words to use are things that are more descriptive without going over the top. Fantastic, amazing, breathtaking. I've been to that hotel. The scenery is breathtaking. So how we describe things, especially in sales, especially if you're selling travel, Phil, the words that we use, because if you're talking to somebody, they're not actually on that holiday, are they? You've got to put the feeling and words in their head. You can show them a picture, that's fine. But how you describe it, you've got to put them there before they're there, if you know what I mean. So at the moment, in the certain circumstances we're in at the moment, is I look on social and everyone at the moment is asking people, right, what's the first thing you're going to do when lockdown's over? And the most common, I would say top 3, if I did a poll, I would say they want to go to the pub, they want to go to football, or they want to go on a holiday, or they want to go and see their friends. That's what I'm seeing. So at the moment, it's looking forward, you know, looking forward. Thank you for your comments. And yeah, very nice to have some great comments there. Thank you. Thanks for the motivation. Glad People have made notes, and we'll do something different as a result of this. And I think it's what it is. It's about thinking about how you do things at the moment, and be brave. Try something. Try something different. And I guarantee your customers will be so, not just your customers and your friends will be delighted to hear from you. And always think about the words you're going to use. And if you're seeing someone face to face, think about how you dress. Think about how you look to someone else. We can't change who we are. We can change about how we portray ourselves. So thank you. Really, really appreciate your time. I know you weren't going anywhere anyway, let's be honest, but thank you for your time. Oh, I might have another question. Let's have a look. Somebody said, tonight I will start sending 25 texts as you did. That's great. And I think the importance of that is the text words. Think about what you're trying to say. Just thought I'd check in to see how you are. See what comes back. You'll be amazed. And then that text that comes back will generate a phone call maybe. And if you can make someone feel good today, then surely that's a great thing, isn't it? You know, really a great thing. Who else have we got here? Thank you, Dave. Thought-provoking. Thank you. Good communication tips. So yeah, your second time in 2 days I've heard about the benefit of video. I think you're right, but I think at the moment, you know, we're all probably a little bit zoomed out, because Zoom's great for business if you have people over the country, and Zoom's important if there's no other way of communicating. But when we come out of this, Zoom won't replace what we normally do. It'll remain what we used to use it for. If I've got a team of people around the country as I do, I can't go and see them all at the same time, but I'll still mix it up. The first thing I want to do is go out and see people, you know, go and talk to people, buy someone a drink, have some lunch with people. So I think that will happen. Thank you. This webinar has been brought to you in conjunction with the Business Nation. If you haven't signed up to the Business Nation, have a look for it online. If you're in the travel industry, have a look for the Travel Nation. These are great networking networks, if that's the phrase, out there that you can use to interact with other business owners, other people, make plans, and to carry on when we can. My name's Dave Pope. Thank you so much for today. Really, really appreciate your time, and I'll see you all soon.